It'll help to cut out audio. Hey, how are we, guys? We are. Whoop, let me mute that. Wonderful.
Hello and welcome to the Strengthening Lives with Love podcast, brought to you by the Joshua York Legacy Foundation. This podcast is dedicated to increasing suicide awareness and prevention through outreach, education, and improving mental health care accessibility. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, be sure to visit our website at joshuayorkfoundation.org/be-our-guest, and let's see what we can do to make that happen.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Today, we're going to be talking to a wonderful team of individuals from NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, out of South Carolina, about the importance of ending the silence surrounding mental health issues and suicide awareness. We've got with us Lynn Scombardi up at the top in the center, who is living her life in her dream job as the Regional Program Supervisor of the Ending the Silence program with NAMI South Carolina, and Sierra Cunningham, a youth who is here to share her lived experience and wonderful story of hope and how it reflects her current role within NAMI. So first off, Lynn, Sierra, thanks so much for being here with us. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to finally have you on. We had this scheduled a few times before, but scheduling issues got in the way. So happy to finally have the conversation. So before we kick it off, Lynn, can you go ahead and tell everyone who's tuning in a little more about yourself and what you do within NAMI?
Okay. So I'm Lynn Scombardi, and I have been living with a mental health condition for about 30 years now. I'm also in recovery, and that's about 10 years now. And I have done a variety of things in social work, social services, as well as in for-profit, corporate businesses, mostly in HR. And I'm kind of back to my passion now, which is advocacy, empowerment, awareness, and building community to break the silence around stigma of mental health, so we can get more people the help they need and know that they're not alone.
Thank you for that, Lynn. And Sierra, can you give a brief about yourself as well?
Yes, thank you for having me first and foremost. But my name is Sierra Cunningham, and I am the young adult presenter with NAMI. I've been with NAMI for about 1.5 years, going on 2 years, and my role within the organization is just to simply share my story as it relates to me living with a mental illness. I also have experience in the human services sector with the Department of Social Services. I also have experience with the Department of Mental Health, and currently I work for the Veteran Affairs. So I work for the federal government in a counselor capacity.
Thanks for that, Sierra. Thank you both for being here. So Lynn, back to you real quick. So how did you get involved? How did you start working with NAMI in the first place?
Well, actually, I had learned about NAMI National back when I was first diagnosed in my early 30s, because they have a lot of free programs. They have NAMI Basics, they have NAMI Family Groups. So Basics is like an 8-week course for folks that are diagnosed with a mental health condition. It's a nice intro that kind of teaches people step by step and empowers folks, kind of gets rid of some of that fear and support. So I had actually reached out to NAMI in my personal life way back when, and have attended some of their support groups too, on and off. And this is even when I was living in Arizona, and then again when I was living in Las Vegas. So it just happened. It literally just happened in June. The position was open. I found it, and I was able to join the team. now we're expanding. We have so many wonderful programs that have taken off in this state that we're actually expanding right now, hiring some more staff, and we've been able to open separate and additional program type positions. So we really are wrapping around youth advocacy and support for everyone who supports youth, which is almost everyone.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So does the Ending the Silence program, does it exist solely in South Carolina right now? Is it in all states? How wide is it?
It is actually in all states. So it has been linked from the NAMI National. It's a program run through national. It has been filtered down to state, because the state levels, we have what we call like affiliate offices, and they're in usually the major cities in each state. And then in our state, in South Carolina, this took off about 2.5 years ago, that we've gotten ahead of ourselves. It's been so successful here, the Ending the Silence program, that we're reaching every single county in South Carolina. We are in the majority of school districts. We're still getting people to know us and reaching out into communities more. And it's just really exciting. So it is offered everywhere. And South Carolina is our focus, at least for Sierra and I. We represent South Carolina specifically.
Got you. And Sierra, what about you? What got you, before we dive into your story, what got you involved with NAMI?
I got involved with NAMI when I was working with the Department of Mental Health in South Carolina. I was actually the patient affairs coordinator for the entire state. And I had the pleasure of sharing my story with Bill Lindsay, who is basically like the head of NAMI South Carolina. So I met him and I just was really intrigued about the program. He talked very highly of it and I wanted to know more about it. So I had the opportunity to, share my story with him, and he further introduced me into NAMI. And from there, I just wanted to remain a part of it.
Got you. Thank you for that. So we're here to talk about your story today, Sierra. So the floor is yours. Tell us about your story.
Okay, well, feel free to ask me anything.
Absolutely.
As I tell my story, because I'm very transparent. I am, I work with veterans all day. So I'm a straight shooter because that is really what I get all day. I don't really sugarcoat too much. So if you have any question, nothing is really off limits to me. Feel free to just jump in. But I hail from Orangeburg, South Carolina. I'm from a small town. We have a Piggly Wiggly and a Walmart, so we don't have a whole lot going on. I grew up in a 2-parent household for a majority of my life, but, that changed. I didn't really experience any trauma until I got to high school. So I made it through elementary school fine, made it through middle school fine. But when I got to high school, my mom was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. And when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, my dad's way of coping with this particular situation was to actually leave my household. So that left me the parental figure of my little brother and my sister. So I was now cooking to the best of my ability because I am not a top chef. I was not a top chef then, and I'm not a top chef now. I was going back and forth to school, helping them with their homework, doing my homework. And I was raised on the motto, what happens in this house stays in this house. So with that motto, what happens in this house stays in this house, that meant that although I was going through a lot of different emotions with seeing my mom battle breast cancer, as well as dealing with my dad basically leaving the household, I had to go to school every single day like most kids and act like nothing was wrong, because I was always taught to keep in-house business in-house. You do not talk about what goes on in this house. You just keep it to yourself and keep it moving. So every day I was going to school, I was acting like nothing was wrong. I know it doesn't look like it today because all the Corona snacks that I was eating, but I was a cheerleader. So I had a bubbly personality and I was always surrounded by a lot of people. But with everything going on in my life, my personality started to change. I went from being extremely bubbly to very aggressive, very standoffish. I went from having a lot of friends to not wanting to be around anybody. And I had a teacher notice the changes in my behavior behavior, and she recommended I go to guidance. Now, I did not like guidance because I thought that guidance had those big welcome to Vegas lights, but instead of saying welcome to Vegas, it said welcome to guidance. I really could not stand guidance because they would pull me out of class every single day at the same time. So that caused a lot of people to ask questions like, why does she get to go to guidance? What's going on in guidance? I want to go to guidance. You know, all high school students see is that she gets to get out of class. So they were trying to figure out like, what is going on? But they didn't know that I didn't want to be there myself. Now, I went to a predominantly African-American high school. However, my guidance counselor at the time was a Caucasian female. Now, I was not inclined to open up to her, not because she was Caucasian, but more so because of the lack of cultural competency. And all that really means is that we had nothing in common. So she was not from Orangeburg, so I couldn't talk about the Piggly Wiggly or the Walmart because she couldn't relate. She was not somebody who followed me from elementary school to high school, so she had no foundational information about me. She wasn't my same age range, so we couldn't talk about music or anything of relevance to me. So it was very generic. So my first experience with counseling, I really didn't get much out of it. But I ended up graduating and I went to college. I went to Johnson C. Smith University, which is located in Charlotte. Now, the change of scenery going from a small town like Orangeburg to a big city like Charlotte, it really did do some good, y'all. I felt good again. I was like, okay, I feel like myself. Okay, this is good. But then all of a sudden, those feelings of me not feeling like myself again, they started to creep back in. So I would be extremely sad. I would sit in the dark with no natural light, no overhead light. I would stop going to class. When I did go to class, I would look very unkempt. I would literally wear the same sweatpants over and over. I did one of those moves where you kind of just pull them up, shake them off, and if it looked decent, you just roll with it. And I would either eat too much or I would eat too little. So I had a professor at this time notice these changes in my behavior again, and she recommended I go to student support services. Now, student support services is just another term for guidance. But at this time, I thought I was grown. You know, I made it to college. You can't tell me what to do because I'm a grown lady, right? But that's not the case. So in college, you know, they can actually make you withdraw from the course content if they don't feel like you're healthy enough to handle that. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that I graduated on time. So I ended up going to student support services. And this time around, my counselor was an African-American male. Now, I was more inclined to open up to him, not because he was African-American, but more so because he was a male figure. Because earlier in my story, I told you that my father had left my household. So what you'll find is that people often gravitate to something that they're missing or something that they have a void in. So I was missing that male energy, that fatherly figure. So I opened up to that counselor with no problem. And all was going well until after several sessions, he sat me down and let me know that he was going to diagnose me with major depressive disorder and anxiety and recommended I take medication. Now, in my community, the African-American community, and in my household specifically, we don't believe in taking a whole lot of medication. We think you can pray everything away. We think you can take a little turpentine. I don't even know if y'all know what that is. Turpentine, a little ginger ale, take a nap and wake up, and that's supposed to be the cure for everything. Ginger ale and a nap. And if ginger ale and a nap don't cure it, then you better pray it away. But you know that is not realistic. So what do most people do when they hear news that they don't want to hear or they're in denial about it? They stop going to the person. So that's what I did. I stopped going to him. In my mind, I thought he didn't know what he was talking about. So I just proceeded with life as normal. And one day I was laying down in my dorm room and I physically couldn't get out of bed, but it wasn't like a sad couldn't get out of bed. My body was actually in excruciating pain. So I ended up going to the hospital, and after several months of very strenuous testing, I was actually diagnosed with lupus. Now, lupus is an autoimmune disorder, which means it's a physical disorder. When I was diagnosed with lupus, I knew and accepted the fact that I was going to have to take medication for that. But again, I was in denial about needing medication for my mental illness and even having a mental illness. So I want you guys to think about, like, why is that? So a lot of people empathize and sympathize with things that they can see. So you can see when somebody has a common cold. You can see when somebody is battling something like lupus, breast cancer, anything. So with those physical illnesses, you get the empathy and the sympathy. But you don't get the empathy and sympathy with things that you can't see necessarily, like how my brain is functioning, or that you don't understand. Because a lot of mental illnesses, they display symptoms like when you come down to bipolar, schizophrenia, but those symptoms are seen as, oh, she's just crazy, or there's something wrong with her. There's no empathy that comes with the symptoms or the physical manifestations of mental illness versus physical. So, I was accepting the fact that I had a physical illness. I was okay with taking medication, but I was definitely not down for the mental illness or taking medication for that. So fast forwarding, I thought I was going to walk across the stage of Johnson C. Smith University and become a millionaire. I just knew I was going to be a millionaire after walking across that stage. And I just knew somebody was going to hire me immediately. And I was going to get $100,000 job right after college, right? Because I'm amazing. Okay. But that's not what happened. I ended up having to go back home to Orangeburg, South Carolina. And not long after me going home, my mom sat me down and let me know her breast cancer had returned and moved from one side to the next. So in our actual presentation, when it comes down to ending the silence, we go over warning signs. One of the warning signs that I was given was that anytime somebody would ask me, how's your day? How's the weather? What did you eat? My response would be, I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired. Nobody took the time to ask those probing questions. What are you tired of? What does that mean? Why do you keep saying that? Because I would have told them that I was tired of living. So I do stand before you virtually a survivor of a suicide attempt. And that's very important for me to share, not only as an individual who, attempted suicide, but also as a minority female, because in my community, it's still very taboo or still very uncommon or uncomfortable for us to discuss. Also, in the presentation, in the silence, we do talk about means of harm. So my modality was actually, I was so tired, or I thought that I just couldn't do it anymore. I just wanted to sleep. So I decided that I was going to take some pills. Now, when I woke up in the hospital, my family already had this story ready to go. Oh, she took the wrong pill. She had an allergic reaction. She got her lupus medication confused. They were in total denial that I attempted suicide. So I went along with it. I said, hey, if y'all gonna say that nothing wrong with me, then nothing is wrong with me. I thought that I maybe woke up on the wrong side of the bed and decided to make a rash decision. But it wasn't until one day I went into Piggly Wiggly, and Piggly Wiggly has a very awful smell. That smell, it really triggered something in me. I got really dizzy. I got sweaty. I got nauseous. I couldn't see. I thought I was having a heart attack, but I know now I was having a panic attack. And it was in that moment that I really took my mental health seriously and put it in perspective, because I said, hey, I don't want to go out like this. So now the same way I take my medication for my lupus is the same way I'm okay with taking medication for my depression and anxiety. The same way I'm okay with going to my doctor for my lupus is now the same way I'm okay with routinely going to my therapist for my depression and anxiety. In the presentation, we talk to students, staff, anybody, family members about the fact that mental illness has no face. It does not care about your race, religious beliefs, how you identify, your ethnicity. It affects everybody equally in some capacity. If you don't deal with it personally, you know somebody who deals with it, a family member or friend, but it doesn't have to stop the person from being successful. So I thought I was going to walk across the stage and make $100,000. That did not happen, but I feel like it didn't happen immediately because I was supposed to go through some things to get me where I am today. And today I'm very, very healthy, but I do have bad days and I do have good days, and that's okay, because we want to leave the message that there are ways that you can cope with it and you're not by yourself. So I'm doing really, really good. Working for the federal government has its ups and downs, but I'm really successful in the things that I'm doing. And yeah, you can ask me anything. That's my story in a nutshell.
Well, I'd like to start off with one, Sierra. I actually, after we lost my son, quit my job as an accountant and became a teacher within the city of Baltimore, teaching ROTC. And so about just under 50% of my population of students are African American from the inner city, and about equally amount are Hispanic from all over, from families that have been here for a while to new immigrants. So, and I hear that the one comment that you made that the families are, what happens in the home stays in the home. And I am curious if you have any advice for myself and our listeners as to how to bridge that boundary.
Yes, I do. What happens in this home, or what happens in this house stays in this house, is very common among Black and brown people. That's just the reality of the situation. It's just how we were raised for a multitude of reasons. But my advice is consistency. If you show somebody that you're here for the long haul, they are bound to open up to you. And that is something that I have noticed working with foster kids with the Department of Social Services. I've noticed working with kids with NAMI. If you continue to say, hey, I'm here for you. If you continue to say, hey, I want to listen to you. I want to know what you have to say consistently, then they're going to believe you after a while. But what we find is that a lot of people decide to give up. It's like, hey, you know, this is a tough nut to crack. I don't really have time for her anymore. So they back away. But what you did is you just show that person that maybe you're really not that interested. When people are going through things in life, mental illness, things in general, they want to know that people are going to show up and not disappear. So my advice would be to just be consistent. If they don't open up to you initially, just be consistent, whether that means saying hello to them in the hallway every single day, whether that means, you know, just, hey, how's it going every single day? Just that little physical, you know, that little every now and again check in, whether that's eye contact or just a little something to say, hey, I see you today. I promise you will see some type of progression as it relates to them slowly opening up to you, because they will be able to identify that person who has taken an interest in them.
Yeah. Okay, I was just going to say, I believe in that fully. And I think what, for those folks who do start to back away from what my experience has been with my students over the last 3 years, is it actually reinforces the negative side of keeping it in the home. So.
Absolutely. And what you'll find is that they want to open up to you. They want somebody to come to, so they will gravitate towards you. They will cling onto you. Trust me. Once they open up to you, you become their person. So we identify those people like your person that you go to. You know, you probably, Mr. Bill, you probably are the person for so many kids that you don't even know.
And I'd like to jump in too, because I think another way, and what, you know, Sierra's saying and Bill, what you brought up, is making someone comfortable opening up to you is to understand. So as far as the education around stigma and awareness, I mean, in the United States, we haven't really had a good track record with being empathetic or even trying to find appropriate types of treatment for mental health. And, you know, I just want to hit on a couple things that I think have been kind of pushed under the rug. Maybe people don't talk about, or they don't fully, you know, understand, is that like in the start, in the 1800s, late 1800s here, community mental health services in general, they really didn't exist. Jail was the option. So unfortunately, even back then, because we still have this issue today, is that jail is seen as an option, and jail is not treatment. And then, of course, we had asylums. So what used to be called insane asylums for very acute cases. We had things going on in the United States in the early 1900s with psychiatrists were backing eugenics as well as sterilization. So, I mean, we had immigrant populations were targeted, mentally ill populations, disabilities, Black and brown communities, even unmarried mothers were targeted. So, you know, that's before we had the Second World War, when all those crimes, they were crimes against humanity. So that included eugenics and enforced sterilization. So those types of things were happening. And so there's still like cultural fear. There's still folks who have, you know, generations that have lived through that. And so there is still that fear or that shame on top of like our current stigma in the media, that every time there is something violent happening, it just seems like, you know, social media picks it up as there must be a mental health condition. You know, this person has to have a mental health condition for this to happen. You know, in fact, the majority of folks having mental health conditions are more likely to be the victims of violence, or in the schools in bullying. And there's my little pup saying hello to everyone. But so I think understanding some history can make us more empathetic to everyone, to help put us in other people's shoes. And then, moving to what Sierra said, staying the course.
It's a wonderful way to put it there. I also was looking at your the NAMI website, and I just want to point out for our listeners that your program is free, as it says on the national site, that free for schools and communities. It looks like you have at least 3 different types of presentations that you do: families, school staff, and students, different perspectives, different amounts of time, and so that is a great site. That's NAMI, NAMI.org for folks, and every state, as I understand, has their own local state chapter. Correct?
Correct. And I think, Bill, this is just a side note. In South Carolina, we have totally taken off with what we call Go Lime Green. So it's our mental health awareness nights with our middle school and high school football teams.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so teachers that are coaches or athletic directors or even Little League, that kind of thing, we're getting with all of our middle schools and high schools to host these nights. And we have a bunch of pictures on our Facebook, NAMI South Carolina, and then Ending the Silence Facebook page, showing some of the green Go Lime Green nights we have. It's a phenomenal program. Like, the kids are wearing green socks. We present certificates. The cheerleaders wear green bows. It's just a celebration. Of how we can end the stigma again, raise awareness, and still have fun.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very important point that we kind of fell upon as we were working towards a Guinness World Record attempt, and that we came across an organization from, I believe it was California, called 99.org, I believe, and it was basically a young man on a football team had taken his life, and it was the other 99 other sports people in the school that were affected. That's how they came up with their name. But I point that out because, Sierra, you talked about being a cheerleader and how everybody saw you as happy and always a positive person. I think that's an assumption that a lot of people make, that all these folks who are involved in group sports have positive attitudes. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
The you're popular, you don't have problems factor. Same thing that we're talking about with like Robin Williams when that happened.
Yeah, definitely. You're popular, you don't have any problems, or it even is down to social economic status. Oh, you're middle class. You can't possibly know what I'm going through. Or, you have a college degree. You got to go to college. There's nothing wrong with you. Or when we give these presentations, it's like, well, you don't look like you're depressed. Well, you don't look like you have anxiety. So I don't feel bad for you. So people don't necessarily, again, show that empathy or sympathy until it's too far gone. And that's why a lot of people wait to get help, because of that stigma or because of that suppression. It's like, will they believe me? How can I tell my mom and dad, who think that mental illness is just a hoax, that I'm feeling sad constantly? How can I tell my mom that I'm hearing voices when she's just going to tell me I'm doing it for attention? So that's what you'll find. You'll find that kids, adults, everybody is going through something, and they will not say anything. Or let's take it a step further. When you talk about understanding situations, how do I share to my counselor that something is going on in my household when they try to take me away from my mom because we live in poverty? So I just got back in my mom's household from foster care because she couldn't afford her bills, so the lights were off. But now I'm scared to tell these people that something is really wrong with me because I don't want them to take me away from my mom. So it's so many different circumstances that prevent people from opening up. But the most common is that stigma and the lack of understanding from the reciprocating, the receiving party. So people want to open up. They're just scared to talk to whoever it is that they need to talk to, because they're scared of the repercussions of what's going to come. And also, like you said, like, who's going to believe the person who looks like they have it all is miserable? Like, I work with veterans every single day. All you hear is, oh, veterans make so much money. They have these pensions and this and that. But 75% of my veterans are homeless. So you just never know what somebody is going through.
So maybe you would be the one who would be able to best speak to this. I find that when I talk to youth,
and your audio is
that more and more as my son becomes a teenager and my daughter is 10, and that's a whole new world for me, as they're talking more to other children, and they're saying, I talk to them at least once a week, and they're like, my son came to me this last time and he said, Mom, there's this kid in my class and there's something wrong with him. And I'm like, what's wrong with him, buddy? And he's like, he shows up with weird marks on him. He's like, and I want to help him, but he's afraid to tell anyone. But should I tell someone? Or am I going to get in trouble for telling someone? Are they going to believe me? I'm like, buddy, you should always tell someone. He's like, but I'm scared. If I tell Dad's going to get mad at me and say I'm lying because this kid said there's nothing wrong. So what would your advice be to like a parent who reaches out and their kid reaches out to them and like, but I don't want you to do anything. Me and my kids are in separate states. They're in Texas in this case. But like, how do you help your child to reach out when they're in fear for their friend, but they're also in fear for themselves that they're going to get repercussions back? What do you think would be best in those situations? Like in Bill's case, he's a mandated reporter. He's got to do something. In a normal parent's case, they don't want to rock the boat for their child and make them mad. And they can't necessarily, the kid's not going to tell us who, but how do we help them react? Obviously, I've taught my kids to recognize, and they're trying to act, but they don't know exactly how to act. What would your situational thoughts be? Because it's affecting him mentally, because he knows there's such this problem and he wants to protect his friend, but he doesn't know how.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sierra or I think maybe we can tag team on this real quick. So
Yeah.
I think that's something we hear a lot. And in our Ending the Silence presentation for families, we actually review this. And I think it's actually, your son has a lot of courage even talking about this. And yeah, and a lot of times, and I kind of want to, this is just a great point for everything, is that sometimes when kids see bruising on other kids, we immediately go to that child's being abused somehow, but we don't know. This could be some kind of form of self-harming, which could be signs of a mental health condition. So we don't know until we reach out and talk. And so a big part of that is having those trusted adults. So whether it's talking to an adult and then finding a way, if the adult has someone safe they could talk to in the school and say, how do we handle these things? And start even that way in talking about it. Talking to your son about, well, do you have anyone in school? Or could you talk to your friend and let him know how concerned you are? Will he go to the guidance counselor with you together? So those are types of things we actually bring up in the presentations because it's very real as you're experiencing. And Sierra, can you please tag in on that too? Insight?
Sure. I look at this from a multitude of different perspectives coming from the DSS sector or the Department of Social Services sector. You definitely, we're all mandated reporters. So you definitely want to encourage your children to, if they see something, say something. And I think they did that by coming to you. So sometimes they do need that buffer. And sometimes as the adult, we do have to step in and relay the message to the proper, person at the school. But also we have to be very careful, even as adults, assessing situations, because that can be very tricky. So in presentations, we talk about common areas where bruises occur. So you want to be very careful about associating everything with abuse and neglect, as well as everything with mental illness. But definitely to be safe, you want to report it. Like I said, like when Ms. Lynn said, your son, he's very courageous for coming and telling you. But I think that one of the easiest way to to get the situation reported would be for you as a parent to reach in and maybe talk to the guidance counselor or whoever you would need to talk to at the school. And that takes a lot of pressure off the child. And also commend the child for saying something. Thank you for telling mommy what you saw in school. And from there, the adults can handle it.
Yeah, in his case, his stepmom is a teacher. I think that's kind of why he didn't tell mom and dad in his case. So he came to me because I'm in a different state, and he knew if he went to mom and dad, something would have been done otherwise. And so he kind of came to me. So I told him I would think about it and see what I could do, and maybe see if there were marks next week, to not to be too scared, and let me know what he found next week. And if the friend just didn't have any, we'd see what would happen. And then I would help him next week. So that's how I kind of approached it this time, and said, see if they go away and there's not any new ones. And then we'll do something. How about that, bud? And he's like, oh, okay. I'll see if there's some next week when we change in the locker room for a track. Yeah. And that's how I approached it this time, to give him the, good job recognizing that there was a problem, and let's see if there's a problem next week. If there's none next week, then we'll see, wait a little longer. But good job taking recognition for your friend and being approachive. And then if you see another problem, then we're going to do something, okay? He's like, all right. But it was really bad, I thought. So I thought I'd tell you it was really bad, because you're always telling us to be aware of our friends and take care of them. And if something bad is happening, to tell someone that we trust and they'll help us, right? I'm like, right. That's a good idea. He's like, but you'll do something if it's really bad. I was like, yeah. It's like, no one around here would do something, Mom. They're not like that.
Yeah, that's
so I think it's important to have people like you that have programs. And I just don't know a way that children can find that on their own. And so it's a really cool way that, how do children find that on their own if their parents don't have that, especially at a young age? And how do they find you guys?
And I think that's something actually that Sierra had talked about before, and even kind of recommend. It's like a tag you're it. That's kind of what I call it. So when a kid reaches out to any of us and they do have those fears, and those are kind of adult fears, in that case, as the parent, that's something that is important for all the reasons. Obviously, you're teaching your kid a lot of good lessons to look out for each other and be honest. So, good for you on that. That's wonderful. And, you might just need to reach out and talk to his dad. You really probably need to do that. And when you're doing that, that's the opportunity to take that time to build up your son. And to say, he's really nervous coming to you, not just because he thinks, it's not that he doesn't trust you. It's just because he doesn't want to get anyone in trouble. And that's why he's scared. That's why he came to me. He trusts both of us, but I'm not there. And he's really scared to get his friend in trouble. So he's afraid his friend is not doing well, but he doesn't want him to get in trouble. So, as adults, here's the information. What do you need to do? So
we all hope to have great teachers like Bill, but they don't.
Yep. And the kids get to us through the schools mostly. I'm sorry, Josh.
No, I was going to say, I feel like another one of the important things there is to reinforce the fact that, he did a good thing by telling you, and reinforce, if you were to have that conversation with his dad, make sure that that's like a general consensus, reiterated to the kid. That way, when something bigger does happen, he knows that he can go and say something about it. Because if he feels afraid from the first time, or if there's a bad outcome from the first time, you're going to have, the boy who cried wolf factor, and he's not going to want to say anything the next time when something serious is happening, or more serious, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, he's a predominantly blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy in Texas, so he kind of stands out. His sister doesn't right now, and so she's flourishing butterfly, and he keeps failing. I feel so bad for the kid. But I mean, it was kind of what you had said, Sierra. You felt like you were different, and and my daughter is a spitting image of me, and he's not, so he always feels like he sticks out in his crowd. So it's the same situation, kind of reversed though. Whereas her and I fit very well in together. He's always the third wheel, and he doesn't fit in. He looks adopted. He often gets asked, "Are you adopted? Are you what are you?" When my daughter and him and I are around. So your story really resonated with me with my son, because he doesn't fit in with his family. He doesn't look like us in his own family. So I mean, I get it, and he definitely is always taught. You can come to us. You can tell us if you're feeling some sort of way. And it was very empowering for him to do that and for his friend. But we really hope that, other children learn from those lessons of you can reach out to someone else. And we just hope they find programs like yours where they can learn that. And that is in every place. And it's so hard for them to find things like that. So you guys are empowering to children, and to have programs like that is amazing, and hear that they're doing that. But as a mom, I kind of got stuck. What do I do? He's in another place. How do I find places like you guys to send him to and kind of let him be guided on his own now that he's almost a teenager, and let that keep being a structure for him?
Yeah, I feel it's reinforcing the factor of, hey, this was a good thing, and letting them know that keep doing this. You know what I mean? If you see something, say something. It goes for this as well. It goes for mental health. It goes for, things happening at the home, all that kind of stuff.
I really want to point out, I love the approach that you're doing. You use different language that we use. We use connect, recognize, act, connect with a person, which is, Sierra, exactly what you've been saying through your presentation. Recognizing the sign, which, Lynn, you pointed out some of that too. And I think, there's probably not enough education and recognition out there yet today, although I think it's growing. And then, as Ann pointed out, the courage to act even when it can impact the relationship that you have. And Sierra, I commend you for stepping up and acting on the behalf of others that you don't know by sharing your story. I'd like to thank you personally for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It means a lot. I mean, it's very hard sometimes to get up here and share your story, but honestly, I feel like that is what I have been placed here to do, especially after attempting suicide and surviving. You feel like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I have a story to tell. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I think you do have a story to tell, and I hope you continue to do that. Obviously, from what I can gauge from this online conversation, I think you do show that sense of you're helping other people in what you're doing. And, I hope you continue to do that for as long as you're willing and able.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Now,
I just want to do one thing real quick. We do this towards the end, middle of every podcast, but if you're listening and you are struggling, there is help out there through the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Within the US, that phone number is 1-800-273-8255. So reach out. There are places out there, or people out there 24 hours a day that you can get on the phone and talk to, whether you're having a down day or you just need help to get through something. 1-800-273-8255. Also, make sure that you join our Facebook group, Suicide Prevention Rocks. Super engaging group where people talk about all sorts of stuff, post rocks, kindness messages. It's a very engaging and very enlivened group. Just search Suicide Prevention Rocks on Facebook. Visit us on the web, www.joshuayorkfoundation.org. Thanks so much for listening. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you. And, I'd like to give Lynn and Sierra both the opportunity to, especially for those listeners and members of the Suicide Prevention Rock Group in the Carolina area, can you promote how to get in touch with you? How do you set that up, and about how long it takes once you make that initial contact? Let people know what the process is.
Definitely. And I'd also just like to add, we also have a 24/7 crisis text line. You can actually text NAMI, NAMI, to 741-741, or HOPE for SC to 741-741 also. And with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, we basically provide everyone with these resources too. There's chat, there's texting, there's video calls, there's phone hotlines now. So please know there are so many resources. To get in touch with us directly, let's see. One thing that I would love to have happen, people can reach out to me at my email address, and I will send them to the coordinator, program coordinator, who sets up all the different presentations in their county and in their region. So we divide South Carolina by our regions. So every program coordinator has about 5 counties that they're over. Our 2 supervisors, we split the state in half and assist and kind of work with all the different counties in those regions. So we have several regions that we are responsible for. So yep, please, you can shoot me an email. Thank you for putting that on there, Josh, and I'll get you to the right person. And that's for any type of presentation that you might want or just inquiries. That would be great. I would love to help people.
Awesome. And what about you, Sierra? So as we begin to wrap up, Lynn, you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about some stuff. So feel free.
I think I just wanted to bring that little piece of history in, and I think I was able to do that as part of our discussion of just really having open minds. There's so much behind these discussions, and even for me, I was ashamed myself, and that was even before talking to anyone else, my family. I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought something was wrong with me, and this was in elementary school. So there's a lot of different layers to opening up about, I'm sorry for my dog again, about opening up for mental health, signs of mental health, and really just it's starting from a place of empathy, connection, and understanding is really the way to go in any situation like this.
And so in parting, is there anything else you'd like to say, Lynn? And rather, what would you, if you could put it into 15, 20 seconds, what would you say for someone who's struggling, or for someone who knows someone who's struggling? What can they do in order to end the silence on it and get that person help?
Talk to them. Simply say, I really care about you. I'm seeing some of these things going on. What's going on? Can you, I'd like to listen and hear what's happening with you. And
Lynn, I think you hit it right on the head with the last thing you said. I'd like to listen. Yeah, it's the hardest thing. I think our society is built on a culture of pushing forward all the time, and listening is something that we typically don't get taught so very often. It's something that we learn hard over time, and to hear you say that just really drives that home for me, and I appreciate you using those words.
Beautifully put. And Sierra, for you, being someone that's gone through it, this foundation was started because we lost Josh back in July of 2018. And unfortunately, we know a lot more now than we did then. However, for someone who is struggling, what would you say to them?
For someone who is struggling, I just want to say, at first, it's okay to feel. And the reason why I say that is because I was taught, you don't cry, You hold everything in. You are strong, especially in my community. You have to be strong. We have so many other things to worry about. We definitely can't focus on your mental health. So you don't cry, you don't show emotion, you just stick it out. And I want to let people know that it's okay to feel. It's okay to be vulnerable, because even to this day, I struggle with vulnerability. Like sometimes I look back at these recordings and my face is so stoic, but that is just because I am just hardened. That's my go-to. So it's okay to feel, it's okay to open up, and it's okay to talk. And what you'll find is that I feel like my lupus, because lupus remains dormant for a long time. I feel like me holding in so much is what triggered my physical illness. And that's a real thing. You can hold in so many things till your body just starts manifesting things physically. So I want to let people know that it's okay to talk. You are normal. That bothers me so bad when people say, oh, normal people don't act like this, or normal people, listen, you are normal. Your brain just operates differently, but that doesn't make you any less normal than the next person. So talk, let it out, and open up.
The thing that I gathered from both of you is the talk piece, which we say all the time. So if you're on the side of struggling, talk. If you're on the side of you think that you know someone who is struggling, talk. Because the only way to end a stigma, and again, we say it all the time, but the only way to end a stigma is to talk the hell out of it until people are bored of listening, because then it's a thing of the past and it's no longer a stigma anymore. In parting, again, thanks so much for being with us today. Thanks so much for hopping on and being willing to do the reschedule. I think this was powerful. Again, if you're listening to us on YouTube or Facebook, the contact information, this will repost. So the contact information for them will be put up. You can email Lynn if you're interested in getting an event booked or to help guide through that. She said she's willing to help you out with that. Her email's at the bottom of the screen right now. If you're struggling or if you need help, texting is the easiest way. Text NAMI to 741-741 or Hope for SC to 741-741 if you're within the South Carolina area. There's help out there. So whatever you do, talk, and don't think that you have to hide that. Again, the podcast, as well as the recording and everything here, was brought to you by the Joshua York Legacy Foundation through Suicide Prevention Rocks. Thanks so much for listening to us. Thanks so much for being here today, and have a great day. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all you do too.
Always a pleasure to work with somebody else who's working on the same mission. So thank you both.
Thank you.